Joe Biden took oath as the 46th President of the United States last night. Weeks after the Capitol Hill siege, there are extraordinary levels of security in place for the inauguration ceremony. Joe Biden was sworn in as the 46th President of the United States on Wednesday. His deputy, Kamala Harris, the daughter of immigrants from Jamaica and India, also took oath as the new Vice President, becoming the first woman, Black person, and first Asian American to serve in the position. In his first remarks, Biden said, "Here we stand days after a riotous mob thought they could silence the will of the people. It will not happen, not today, not tomorrow, not ever." He pledged to be honest with the country as it continues to confront difficulties, saying leaders had an obligation to defend the truth and defeat the lies. Saying there was no time to waste, Biden signed a slew of orders to change the course of the COVID-19 pandemic, combat climate change and advance racial equity. Undoing Donald Trump's legacy, he lifted the travel ban on 13 Muslim-majority and African countries, halted construction of the US-Mexico border wall, and directed officials to preserve the Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals, DACA, among other things. Meanwhile, Biden disclosed that Trump had written him a generous letter before departing from Washington. The president wrote a very generous letter. "Because it was private, I won't talk about it until I talk to him. But it was generous," he said. In his final address before leaving the White House, Trump had told the nation, "We love the American people and again it has been something very special. And I just want to say goodbye, but hopefully it's not a long-term goodbye. We'll see each other again." Empty streets, thousands of troops in Washington as Biden becomes U.S. President. Joe Biden became the 46th U.S. President on Wednesday in a barricaded city, guarded by more than 25,000 troops and emptied of the spectators who usually throng to the quadrennial ritual. The unprecedented precautions, which fenced off much of downtown Washington, ensured that Biden and Vice President Kamala Harris took their oaths of office at 11:48 a.m. EST free of incident. Some right-wing extremist groups had vowed to disrupt Biden's inauguration in the wake of a January 6 attack on the U.S. Capitol that left 5 people dead, including a Capitol police officer. As D.C. turns page on Trump, Delhi works on reopening chapter. Promising to repair our alliances and engage with the world once again, Joseph Biden, sworn in as the 46th President of the United States Wednesday, signaled he was turning a troubled page on the Trump era. For the establishment in New Delhi, along with Indian Ambassador to the U.S. Taranjit Singh Sandhu who was attending the inaugural, the task is cut out. Sandhu's predecessors in Washington, External Affairs Minister S.J. Shankar and Foreign Secretary Harshvardhan Shringla, all are banking on their significant experience of dealing with Washington, D.C.'s beltway politics and its key interlocutors. Pope tells Biden he prays God will guide reconciliation in U.S. Pope Francis told U.S. President Joe Biden on Wednesday that he was praying that God would guide his efforts to bring reconciliation in the United States and among the nations of the world. In a message sent shortly after the second Catholic U.S. president was sworn in, Francis also said he hoped Biden would work towards a society marked by true justice, freedom, and respect for the rights and dignity of every person, especially the poor, the vulnerable, and those with no voice. Under your leadership, may the American people continue to draw strength from the lofty political, ethical, and religious values that have inspired the nation since its founding, Francis said. I likewise ask God, the source of all wisdom and truth, to guide your efforts to foster understanding, reconciliation, and peace within the United States and among the nations of the world in order to advance the universal common good, he said. British Prime Minister Boris Johnson joined world leaders in congratulating Joe Biden on his inauguration as the 46th U.S. President. I look forward to working with Biden, says British PM Boris Johnson. Israel PM Netanyahu congratulates U.S. President Joe Biden on his inauguration. Israel PM Benjamin Netanyahu congratulates Joe Biden on his inauguration as the 46th President of the United States. Canada PM Justin Trudeau congratulates U.S. President Joe Biden on his inauguration. Canadian PM Justin Trudeau congratulates Joe Biden on his inauguration as the 46th President of the United States. Amanda Gorman becomes the youngest poet to read at an inauguration. American poet and activist Amanda Gorman read at U.S. President-elect Joe Biden's inauguration on January 20. Born in 1998, she became the youngest poet to do so. Gorman suffered from speech impediment since childhood, but that did stop her from finding her own voice. She refuses to view it as a weakness as well. "I don't look at my disability as a weakness," said Gorman. "It's made me the performer that I am and the storyteller that I strive to be. When you have to teach yourself how to say sounds, when you have to be highly concerned about pronunciation, it gives you a certain awareness of sonics, of the auditory experience." Thanks for watching this video. Please do subscribe All Media New York.